6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Calix Boxing, Calcast number 3. Calcast is back, man, and I am very happy to be with you guys tonight. I wanted to talk about this tonight, the whole Deontay Wilder, Mark Breland saga going back and forth. And normally I don't like to talk about, let me get this comment section up so I can see for when people pop in. Normally I don't talk about things like this. I like to talk about the fights. But it's interesting, and it is noteworthy, and it's newsworthy, and it's something we need to pay attention to because, as I've said for this whole Deontay Wilder thing for 11 months now, because this is going on, is it a year? This fight happened like last February, right? February 2020. Is that correct? So we're going on a year, and this is still brewing. And to me, it's a credit to Mark Breland that he's just commenting on this. He's just commenting on this because Deontay Wilder has been saying some reckless and wild stuff for a year. And that's disappointing to me because I've always said about Deontay Wilder, the guy at least challenges himself. He has some clear deficiencies in his game, even though he has the most powerful weapon in boxing, that right hand. He has some clear deficiencies, but he's always tested himself. Well, not always. He has late in the game, Ortiz and then Fury twice. What's up, Brian David? What's up, G Funky? Check out G Funky. Hope to be with those guys again this week. Always good. But I don't understand how Deontay Wilder has handled this past year. And it's disappointing as a guy who has supported Deontay Wilder over the years, has taken up for him throughout some things. And I thought he could have handled this way better and people wouldn't have been throwing him overboard this past year because the Glovegate, which still to this day, I didn't know Glovegate was a thing because I kind of went away from YTBC for a while, and that was strictly a YTBC thing. It originated here, it grew here, and it grew into something that I can't fathom. I have no idea what these guys were talking about with Glovegate. It just amazed me. But the gloves, and then he just kept coming with the excuses with the when it got to his trainer poisoning his water, that's when it was too much for me. And dude, nobody asked you to put this 1,000-pound suit on walking to the ring. But we talked about this before. My main point and why I wanted to bring this up tonight is Mark Breland. I see people frustrated with Mark Breland's comments over the weekend, but dude, when your name is constantly thrown under the bus for a year now, because I mean, I remember the day after the fight, Deontay Wilder was sort of throwing his trainers under the bus. You know, we didn't have a good training camp and this and that. Mark Breland was not the reason you lost that fight. He was not the reason you lost that fight. Let's be quite honest. And let's talk about what Mark Breland said, because like I said, it's taken him a year to finally clap back, finally say something. And to me, that's a testament to his character because he could have came out publicly earlier. And I think he was forced into this. He was finally at the point where, dude, if you're pointing the finger at me and claiming that I'm poisoning your water and doing this and doing that and not checking the gloves of the opposition, I don't understand it. D-Style. Yeah, I got the new mic. Finally got the new mic. This one right here was a little too low for me, so trying out this new one. Y'all let me know how it sounds in the comment section. But let's touch on some of the stuff he said. He was on the Fight Is Right podcast, and he said that Wilder's career is done. That's debatable. Stop making excuses. Look yourself in the mirror. Yes, we all should say that. He can't box. A lot of us have been saying that Deontay Wilder can't box. Now, that's somewhat debatable. I thought he used a good jab against Stavern. Now, Mark Breland did say that anybody could have beaten Stavern. Now, once again, I think he's getting carried away there. Stavern was a decent fighter. He was a decent fighter. And I did think that Wilder did show good attributes against Deverne. Used a jab very well. He said that the only real fighter he's beaten in his career is Ortiz. Um, I mean, I'd say that's pretty much accurate. That's the only really good fighter he's beaten in his career. Somebody can fact check me on that, but I think that's accurate. But I think that was a very good win for Wilder. It showed that he had a good chin. It showed that he had heart. He could get up after getting knocked down by a very good, technically sound fighter. It showed that he could beat a technically sound fighter by using his strength, and that's the right hand. And he came back from that fight and knocked him out. It showed that he had the most lethal weapon in boxing, which was Deontay Wilder's right hand, which is a very powerful weapon. So a lot of good things with Wilder there. What else did he say? He said that Joshua can't beat Fury. More on that in a minute, because I really want to touch on that Joshua versus Fury comment that he touched on. But my ultimate point with this and why I wanted to talk about this was Mark Breland could have said this stuff 11 months ago, 10 months ago. But to me, Wilder should fight. I would love Wilder versus Andy Ruiz. And more on that in a minute, because I want to touch on his comment about Wilder's career is over. I disagree with that as well. So it's sort of a mixed bag with here with Mark Breland. But what I don't want to see is Mark Breland's class and character being attacked here, because I think he's a high character guy. I think that Deontay Wilder is very much in the wrong in this whole situation. I don't think you throw your team under the bus unless they say something first. And Deontay Wilder is back at it again today, saying more comments about Mark Breland. I had him around my family and this and that. And how can he backstab me like this? Dude, you stabbed him first. He's just clapping back at you. You're the one who stabbed him first. All right. So I think that Mark Breland has every right to defend himself here. Did he get a little carried away? Did he go a little too far? I mean, that's debatable. To say that Deontay Wilder was never able to box and all this stuff. I've seen some people make comments that, hey, if Deontay Wilder can't box, then that's a credit to maybe your training deficiency, since you were his trainer the whole career. I disagree with that, to be honest. I think it's a testament to Mark Breland that he brought a guy with really one weapon and many deficiencies this far throughout his career to where he can be the heavyweight champion of the world. I mean, he was the heavyweight champion of the world at one point, until he faced a fighter in Tyson Fury who wasn't bothered by that big weapon very much, and learned how to beat this guy at his own game, and was not was going to bully the bully, was not intimidated by this guy at all. And he faced that guy, and Tyson Fury very much exposed him in that fight. Now let's move on from Mark Breland, the comments, and just talk about Deontay Wilder and where he's at in his career at this point, because this is interesting. He said that Deontay Wilder is finished. He's done. Now, mentally, possibly. We've seen guys, I mean, look at Prince Nassim Hamed. Prince Nassim Hamed gets exposed by Marco Antonio Barrera, fights one more time after that, looks very bad, and then just retires. He's gone. He was never able to recover mentally from that loss, from that beatdown. It's not that you lose, it's how you lose. And it's not only how you lose, it's when you lose. When you get humbled like that, when you're at the top of your game, you never think you're going to lose, and you've built yourself up to a certain height, and you never think you're going to get knocked down, and then you get knocked down. That shows your character. That's when you show your character right there. And to me, that's why I love fighters who have lost and have gone down to where they were at their height, then they go down to these depths, and then they build themselves back up. To me, that's a beautiful thing, because it's a microcosm of life, and they build themselves back up. And we're seeing right now with Deontay Wilder, where Hasn't fought in a year. Who is he going to fight? Will he bounce back from this mentally? What's he going to look like in his next fight? Who is his team going to be? So maybe Mark Breland is on to something here. Maybe he sees that knowing Deontay Wilder better than anybody in the boxing ring, maybe he knows that this guy is done. He's finished mentally. He'll never bounce back from this. Now, it depends on what we define as finished. I'm very much excited to see Deontay Wilder come back because I think there's a market for him and I think there's a place for him in this heavyweight division. Will he beat Tyson Fury? No. And that's why I've said over and over, I do not want to see Fury versus Wilder 3. I've already seen who the best fighter is. Shout out Fight Fan 1982, man. Good to see you in the comment section. I already know who's better between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. I know who the better fighter is overall, and I know the better fighter is head-to-head. I've seen it. Tyson Fury matches up better with heavyweight number 2, heavyweight number 3, 4, 5, 6 down the line than Deontay Wilder does. Not only that, he matches up better with Deontay Wilder than Deontay Wilder does with Tyson Fury. We saw that. The first fight, I thought that Tyson Fury won by 2 or 3 points. And then the second fight, we clearly saw it. Were people calling for Ward versus Kovalev 3 after the second fight? I mean, not too many. And there were a lot of similarities there, right? The second fight, Ward destroyed Kovalev, took his heart, took his soul. And that's what happened in the second fight between Fury and Wilder. He snatched Wilder's soul in that fight. Snatched it. It's not only that you beat somebody, it's how you beat them. It's how you beat them. All right. He beat Wilder in the way that Wilder beats everybody else. He didn't say, no, man, I'm going to use lateral movement. I'm going to clinch a lot. He used that dog mentality, backed him up, said, this is my ring, and beat him at his own game. He took away the right hand and just beat him up. He bullied the bully. And that's maybe what Mark Breland's onto here is a loss like that, man. He's finished. He's not going to. Now, once again, there are fights that I would love to see Deontay Wilder in. I'm not ready to write him off. I'm not the guy who writes fighters off after one loss. I've been saying that about Lomachenko. I still want to see Lomachenko back. I think Lomachenko very much fits in at 135. I want to see him continue at 135. I don't want to see him drop down to 130, 126. I think there's room for him in that division. I think he matches up well with some of the top fighters in that division. I want to continue to see him there. I'm not ready to write him off. Same with Deontay Wilder. I would love to see Deontay Wilder fight Andy Ruiz, as William Boxing said. I would love that matchup. All right. What if Usyk decides he wants to take a shot at Deontay Wilder? Would Deontay Wilder be too big for him? Would he not be skilled enough for Usyk? I'd like to see that fight. There are fights and matchups there. I would love to see Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua after Fury's done dispatching of Anthony Joshua, which will happen. So send him to the losers bracket. Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. Number 2 heavyweight versus number 3. I'd like to see that fight. Joshua is a very robotic guy. He would eat some of those right hands. Will he be able to walk through those? Will he be too technically sound for Deontay Wilder? And that's why I'm saying I'm not ready to write Deontay Wilder off. I'm just not ready yet. I want to see him back next fight, see how he looks, give him a light touch, and then let's see what happens after that. Will he be Prince Nassim Hamed? Or will he be a guy that climbs out of the ashes like the Phoenix? Wilder's completely broken mentally. I don't think he can compete at the top level anymore. He seems very vulnerable right now. DGO 0082 says, and that's possible. That's very much possible. And that's why I want to see him back in the ring as soon as possible. Give him a lighter touch. Get his feet wet again. Get his sea legs back. And then let's see what happens after that. But the heavyweight division, to me, as exciting as it is, and there are a lot of good matchups there, it's still, to me, a weak division. And people are going to disagree with me there. But overall, I think it's a weaker division, and where Deontay Wilder, even with his deficiencies, even though the blueprint has been laid out, how many people in the heavyweight division can follow that blueprint that Tyson Fury laid out? How many? I don't see very many. So I'm not ready to write him off in that heavyweight division. Now, am I ready to write him off as the heavyweight champion? Yes, because he's not going to beat Tyson Fury. As long as Tyson Fury is active, I don't want to see that third fight. But if it happens, Tyson Fury mollywops him once again. It's going to happen. So I hope that third fight does not happen. But let me touch on Joshua, his comments on Fury versus Joshua real quick, because I found those interesting. He gave a lot of credit to Fury. He said that Fury is a very good fighter, technically sound, all that stuff, all that good stuff. And he said that Joshua is a guy with no jab, and Fury is just going to destroy him, walk through him. I agree. I've said for a while, I don't understand. I do to a certain degree, man. The guy had a lot of hype coming out of the amateurs. They built him up well. They've built him up very well. The guy has a great physique, very marketable. Does a lot of numbers out there. So I do understand the hype. I get it, but I think it's ready to crumble. I think that building is ready to fall. I think Joshua is going to meet the same fate that Deontay Wilder met last year, and where you might have had Wilder up here, but after that Fury fight, you had to bring him down several notches. And I think Joshua was about to be brought down several notches as well. He's too robotic, too technically sound. I shouldn't say too technically sound, because that could be a good thing, but too robotic, very much robotic. And we saw what happened when Fury fought Klitschko. And that Klitschko is better than this Joshua, in my opinion, that he fought. Maybe not. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself there. But the similarities there are eerie, because they were both robotic. Fury's not going to let you just clinch him. He's just not. He can fight many different ways in the ring. He can fight with the lateral movement. He can fight off of his back foot. He can fight going backwards. He can fight going forwards. And he's going to have Joshua fighting off that back foot. He's going to walk straight through him, because Joshua's not going to be able to hold him back with that jab. And I think he knocks Joshua out as well. And Fury's not a big puncher. But as he showed against Wilder, he doesn't have to be a big puncher. He can still take your soul. And he can do it with combination punches as well. Because Joshua's not going to be able to hold him back without that jab. And even with the jab, it's not a strong jab. And Fury's just going to be too much for this guy. Way too much. Way too much. And I think he's going to do whatever he wants in there. He could play it safe as he gets up in rounds, because he will. He's going to have too much volume for Joshua. Joshua's not going to be able to hang with his volume. He's not a volume guy. Fury can be. And he's going to win however way he wants to win. He can win. I think he's going to come out as a volume puncher in this fight. I don't think he's going to come out tentative. He's going to come out as a boxer. Very free boxer. Keeps his hands down. We've all seen the guy fight. We know what he can do. And Joshua is very much the rock'em sock'em robot, very robotic guy. And he's just not going to be able to handle the athleticism of Tyson Fury. The only Joe Joyce can be a problem. The only difference is that AJ is a combination fighter compared to Klitschko, who is a 1-2 puncher for these guys. Yeah. Yeah, but Klitschko, although he's a 1-2 puncher, he gives you a lot of problems with the clinching. He didn't do that with Tyson Fury. He breaks up the fight, makes it ugly. I don't think that Joshua has that skill to where he can make the fight ugly against Tyson Fury and break it up. I just think he's going to be standing in front of him. And he's a guy with that muscular build, very top heavy. He's going to have issues with Tyson Fury late in these rounds. And it's very weird in that you would look at Joshua and you would look at that guy and say, that guy is the athletic guy. And then you would look at Fury and you're like, all right, that guy looks like he's about to go on a 7-day coke bender and hang out at the bar. And he wouldn't be athletic at all. But Fury's the athletic guy. Fury is the guy who's lighter on his feet. Fury is the guy who's a freestyle fighter. Manny Stewart used to call them freestyle fighters, the guys who can just get in there and just throw hands. And it's not like this, 1, 2. He's just throwing hands. He's throwing combination punches, throwing from many different angles, using his feet, using his footwork. And to me, Joshua doesn't have that. So Fury is clearly the best heavyweight in the world. Just to recap this. Joshua, I always thought was the third best heavyweight, but we're going to find out, I think, because I don't think, just to recap this video, that Wilder's going away. I think Wilder will be there. I disagree with Mark Breland in that his career is over. Wilder will be around for a couple of years to come. What he makes of that career, I don't know. But there is a niche for him. There is a place for him in this heavyweight division. You can't write him off. Once Fury does beat Joshua, which I think will happen, he'll have the losers bracket fight there, and where he can go and fight Joshua. That would still be a big fight, and that would still be a fun fight. Like I said, that's a clever matchup there. And then you would have fun fights, entertaining fights. You could go with the Andy Ruiz fight. You could go with a Usyk stylistic matchup there, in which the smaller guy fights the big guy with the big weapon. You could do something like that. So there are fights there for Deontay Wilder if he sticks around. He can still make a lot of money in the game. He can still do well for himself in the heavyweight division. He can still beat every heavyweight not named Fury, even with the deficiencies, if his mind is right. If his mind is right. AJ has shown improvement in the last 2 fights. He beat Pulev at the game with his jab. Maybe. I just think that my opinion of Joshua is he's clearly plateaued. That's just my opinion. But we're going to find out, is the beautiful thing, because he is about to fight a guy who is a great fighter. Fury's a great fighter, man. He just is. Where he stacks up historically in the heavyweight division is a completely different question, because, like I said, I just don't think historically this is a strong heavyweight division. It's fun. Klitschko leaving left a vacuum to where it's now a more fun heavyweight division. It's a very fun division where you have fun and clever stylistic matchups. You have a lot of guys with personality at the top of the division, so it's a fun division. Is it strong? I don't think so. And historically, it just doesn't match up to me to where I would put Tyson Fury. Where does he match up, for instance, with the top heavyweights of the 90s? Does he beat Lennox Lewis? Does he beat Vitaly Klitschko in the early 2000s, late 90s? Does he beat Evander Holyfield? Does he beat even the early 2000s, late 90s Mike Tyson? Where does he match up with those guys? That's a different conversation for a different day. And you know what? That might be something we talk about on Calcast 4. But I'll cut it short with that tonight. Mark Breland lied. He gave Deontay Wilder Robert Brown. I don't know who gave him water, and I did see Mark Breland say he didn't give him the water, and I've heard that refuted as well. I've also heard people say the same thing you're saying. AJ would definitely be more competitive against Fury than Wilder. I don't know, because Wilder was competitive with Fury in the first fight. So will Joshua be like Fury versus Wilder 1, or will it be like Fury versus Wilder 2? I lean more towards Fury versus Wilder 2. I think Fury very much knows himself now. And Fury versus Wilder 1, I don't think he really knew himself. He was coming off a longer layoff. He had some light touches leading up to that fight. And I think he's a guy who seems to be on the right track right now. He's been more active, and not only that, he seems to be mentally there, which is always the question with him, right? Because he's already said he has mental health issues. So he seems to be in the right place, getting the right medication or whatnot, and he seems fine right now. And I think he's a guy who is very much dedicated to his craft. and it's going to show against AJ. Wilder should go to the UK and KO White. That would also be a fun fight. Also be a fun fight. Yeah. Why not do that? That's what I'm saying. There are fights out there for Wilder. There are too many avenues for him to be successful in the heavyweight division just to write him off. And you could always do some light touches do 2 light touches with him in 2021, get him back going, 22, line him up for the bigger fights again. There are too many avenues there in the heavyweight division, too many fighters he matches up well with in the top 10 just to write this guy off. I got AJ over Fury. No. See, D-Style, we're going to have to talk about this. We're going to have to talk about this. Maybe we save it for Hispanics causing panic or whenever you want to do this, man. But we need to discuss this fight if you think that AJ is going to beat Fury. Because I'm very bullish on Fury over AJ. And I've heard a lot of people, not a lot, but I'd say it's still in the minority, people picking AJ over Fury. I think more people than not are picking Fury over AJ. I haven't seen the betting odds. I don't know if they have betting odds for the fight this far out, but I'm very bullish on Fury over AJ. Very, very bullish. I think he's going to have his way with AJ. I just do. And as far as the Mark Breland gave water to Deontay Wilder, he may have given water to Deontay Wilder that night, but why? Somebody needs to explain to me, why would a trainer, because I've asked this question to people pushing this conspiracy theory here, because I understand why Fury would put something in his gloves, although it didn't happen. But I understand why a fighter would do that. What I don't understand is why a fighter's trainer would sabotage their own fighter. What is in it for Mark Breland to poison his own fighter? And every fighter I've seen give an interview about this very topic, who has been around Mark Breland throughout his career, has vouched for Mark Breland's character and saying that's the last guy who would do something like that. And not only that, given the amount of excuses that Deontay Wilder has used to cover up for his loss against Tyson Fury, makes me discredit every single excuse he's used. If he just came up with one excuse, you'd be like, oh, let's look into that. Let's look into that. But first it started with the ring walk outfit. And like, dude, nobody told you to put that on yourself. Why would you do that? You did that to yourself. Your trainer is poisoning your water? No. The fighter put something in his gloves to make his fist go away from the end of the glove? No, I don't think that happened either. A lot of stuff to touch on. That'll be for different days, but D-Style, we definitely have to talk about that AJ versus Fury battle. Fury will mentally destroy AJ in the press conference. That's another thing that Mark Breland brought up. He said that Fury just gets into your head. He just finds a way to get into your head. And he's right. He's absolutely right. He's one of those guys, man. He knows how to get to guys' head, get to him mentally. And maybe he broke Wilder. I don't know. It's just LDBC Wilder fanboys. I don't know what LDBC. I don't know any of that. See, that's the thing. Like when this whole Glovegate thing happened, I was like, where is this coming from? And then they pointed me in the direction of the YouTube guys who were doing it. And I'm like, definitely guys I want to steer clear of. But where's the drug test from Wilder? Where is the positive drug test from Wilder? I don't know what. I'm not even sure what that means, to be honest. Did Wilder test positive for drugs or something? I don't know. I may have missed that too. But to recap this thing, man, Mark Breland, a classy guy, finally capped back, and good for him. Good for him. I'm happy for him that he's finally able to get this off his chest. Finally, get it off your chest, Mark. Come out again. Get some more stuff off your chest. It gives us stuff to talk about. And I don't think that Deontay Wilder is done. I don't agree with him there. I think Wilder will be back. I think there are a lot of matchups there for him. A lot of avenues for him to be successful in the heavyweight division, and I hope he is back, man. I hope he. I don't want to see anybody. I meant from. That's a good point. Now I see what you're saying. AJ is mentally stronger than Wilder. If he did spike his water, where's the positive drug test? That's a good point. Now I understand what you're saying. That's a fair point by DJO 0082. Be easy to test for that, right? If there was something tainted, where's the test? Be an easy thing to test for. They have no evidence to any of these false accusations. Right. Where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? But look, I understand that things are easy. Things can be easy to cover up. They can be easy to cover up. But like I said, when there are so many excuses and none of them really pass the smell test, right? I mean, for Cotto versus Margarito, there was technically no evidence that Margarito cheated. But we can look at the fight, we can look at the raps after and say, and we can look at his track record before and after and say, I think he cheated. That has some legs to it. You can even say, using common sense, that I know he cheated in that fight. Just using common sense. It just didn't pass the smell test. But this is something different. Like, none of this stuff he's bringing up, and there's so many things, it seems like he's just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, right? And nothing's sticking, except for the guys who are given all this credibility and pushing all these conspiracy theories. None of it stuck. So what are we still doing here? But Fury versus AJ is another thing we need to talk about. We will be talking about that. Now they're blaming MTK Global and the Irish mob. They're never going to stop. It's the Irish mob now. They're never going to stop with that. But Fury is the better fighter, man. And Fury is the best heavyweight in the world. Great fighter. And Fury will beat AJ as well. But look, man, thanks for all the comments tonight, man. It's good to be back. I'm still getting my sea legs back. I very much appreciate everybody being here. Hit that like button. Hit that sub button if you're not subbed. I very much appreciate you guys, man. Very much. And I will be back here daily on a daily basis with Calcast. Go follow the Hispanics Causing Panic crew as well, G Funky and D Style and all those guys. Hit them up. And like I said, man, hit that sub button. I am out.